The U.S. Coast Guard is a branch of the United States Armed Forces. It was founded by Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, as the Revenue Cutter Service on August 4, 1790. Now we take you to a ceremony held by the National Park Service to celebrate the reopening of the Hamilton Grange National Memorial, the home of Founding Father Alexander Hamilton. The house was completed in 1802 and named the Grange after the Hamilton family's ancestral home in Scotland. It is believed to be the only home Hamilton ever owned and is the only memorial in the United States dedicated to Alexander Hamilton. Once cramped between St. Luke's Episcopal Church and an apartment building, the Grange has a new home and has regained its elegant symmetry, a hallmark of the federal style of which it is a noteworthy example. Hamilton Grange is located in St. Nicholas Park on 141st Street between St. Nicholas and Convent Avenues. We are at the Hamilton Grange National Memorial here in Harlem, New York City, which is the home of Alexander Hamilton. It is now reopened to the public following its 5-year closure that included a historic move and painful restoration.
It started in 1802 when Hamilton and his wife embarked on designing and building their first home ever. And it was about 800 feet up to the northwest from here, at elevation about 65 feet higher than it is right now, on the crown of Manhattan, on the major thoroughfare from Albany to Manhattan. So anybody who went up north and down south would pass Hamilton's home. So the house, as it was constructed, took a great advantage of those views and also brought all the light and all the views into the house. So the house is almost, in some areas, like an outdoor pavilion, specifically the dining room where you have the mirrored doors. In 1889, the house was relocated as Manhattan was moving north up to its second place, just up next to St. Luke's Church, where it sat until 2005 when we jacked it up about 55 feet into the air and put it on remote-controlled dollies and drove it down the road into its new location, onto its new foundation. And fortunately, there was land left that was open from Hamilton's original estate, and so this is the lower bottom land of his original estate. So it's still his property, and after the past 3 years of restoration, it actually is his home again with all the historic features that we were able to uncover and restore back into the house.
Who was here on the day of the house moving? Raise a hand. A lot of people. Remember, wasn't that amazing? Up on those wheels, all the computerized things. I think it was the Hutterite brethren who came here with the straw hats, and the whole family was out here. And as it turned the corner on those wheels, was coming down the hill, I had this vision of something from a black and white movie of the house just sort of rolling down the hill and not stopping until it gets to the Harlem River. And everybody's saying, "Look out, look out." That didn't happen. It somehow, miraculously, thanks to amazing work of the National Park Service and the architects and the conservationists and these great farmers, house movers, and made it into the park. And then the difficult work of seating it here and having a landscape grow up around it. We are thrilled, just thrilled to have it here. It brings life to the St. Nicholas Park, one of the 4 historic Harlem parks that lines the heights here. A park that has its own rich history, full of wonderful, amazing trees. By the way, I'll point out these new trees here, part of the million trees. These are liquid ambar styrofolia, otherwise known as sweet gum, a great native tree, a very historic tree, and a totally appropriate tree to have in this historic setting.
Alexander Hamilton was a quintessential New Yorker. He was an immigrant. He came from the Caribbean island of Nevis, and was sponsored by some of the local businessmen and elite of the island. He was recognized very early on as a prodigy, as a brilliant mind. So at the early age of, 15, 16, or 17, it's kind of up in the air. His birth date is either 1755 or 1757. But he came to the colonies, the 13 colonies, in order to study originally at the College of New Jersey, now Princeton. And he asked for accelerated study. He wanted to move through the program very quickly, and he was, although accepted, he was denied that opportunity. And so he was given the opportunity to study at King's College, now Columbia University. So that became his first foray into New York, and he got involved in revolutionary politics with the Sons of Liberty here in New York, and eventually became a militia member and then a member of the Continental Army. He was an artillery officer and came to the attention of George Washington during the Battle of Harlem Heights, which took place in this area. And shortly thereafter, he was asked to become a member of Washington's personal staff as the aide-de-camp. And he distinguished himself during the Revolutionary War, was a field hero in the Battle of Yorktown. And after the war, he took some of his war experiences from aide-de-camp, and which led to some of his dissatisfaction with the first form of government in the United States, which was under the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation were not, he didn't think they were a good system because the states had to, the federal government had to ask the states to pony up cash, which was a problem when you had a revolution going on in an army because they were often in need of supplies and weapons, and the states were not always forthcoming. So he pushed for a new constitution. And that's the Constitution we have today. And today is Constitution Day. This is the day that the ratified Constitution from the Congress was sent out to the states. And that led to some of Hamilton's finest work, the Federalist Papers, in which he explained and defended the new Constitution in a series of articles that were published in New York newspapers and then eventually up and down the colonies and now around the world as some of the fundamental documents on the federal and Republican form of government.
Alexander Hamilton worked with John Macomb Jr. He was a prominent New York City federal period architect to design what he was calling his Suite project at the time. He was very excited to build his own home for his family. It's the only home that we know that he owned. He and his family were renting places down near the Wall Street area, and he really wanted to relocate to the country, so he purchased this estate with 32 acres. And the house was designed and constructed over a 2-year period between 1800 and 1802. And Hamilton lived here for 2 years until his death in the duel with Aaron Burr. He absolutely loved having his family there and entertaining, and was fairly involved, from what we can tell from the few archival records that exist, with ideas about what materials to use. He was corresponding with his father-in-law, Philip Schuyler, who was prominent in the Albany area, and gave him lots of advice about what grade of wood to use, how to build the exterior walls and to add brick inside to be able to add additional insulation and structural support. I think what's interesting about the interior arrangement of the house are the 2 octagonal rooms that were really used for formal entertaining. One is the parlor and the other is the dining room, and the way that they open up into each other and the shape of them, and especially in the dining room, the mirrored doors would have just made a really wonderful experience for Hamilton and his guests, with the natural light that would have come in at the time and the views that you would have had from, you know, a little bit higher up here and without all the buildings and the trees.
I'm a 5th great-grandson of Alexander Hamilton. We had quite a bit of family here today at Hamilton Grange, which was a house that Hamilton built in 1801. He lived in it for about 3 years. It was, I think, a pet project of his. He really enjoyed the whole idea of building the house and then living in the country. This was 8 miles from his office and home down in the city. So he, he spent a lot of time making sure the house was done right. Everywhere he went, he wanted to make sure that he was putting the latest and greatest things, and so he was very into the architectural aspect of the house. His father-in-law, Philip Schuyler, also contributed a little bit of knowledge. Philip Schuyler was one of the original generals up north, owned a sawmill, and helped Hamilton get the wood. So, overall, this is a great day we got here. The house is beautiful compared to what I've seen before. And with 150 or 200 people here today, it's just been a great event.
The whole event is just the excitement of the house. We love coming here, and all the people that actually help pull this house here, the amazing feat to pull this house up over the street and bring it in, and going through and walking through the history is just so exciting. To actually go through the house and touch the same doors and the windows that he touched and Elizabeth touched just means a whole lot to us. And
I think he'd be proud to see his house, at least I hope so. Not quite exactly how it used to be, but with all the great changes, and I hope he'll be proud of our country and where it is right now.
And because we are now going back to the beginning of this great nation and recognize our responsibility to the generation that follows us, I would like to close this program and thank you by the presentation of Alexander Hamilton VII. Will you come forward, Alexander? He's a little surprised, but Alexander, welcome. You're here from Ohio, right? And you are the 7th generation. And your name?
Grant.
And Alexander Hamilton. So anyway, this group is here. This group is here to make certain that you'll be able to go back to school and tell them what the great job they did. And I hear that you wanted to say thank you. You do.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I have to tell you something.
I knew this was coming.
My 7th grade grip is on a $10 bill.
Well, Alexander would be proud of you, but I'm very serious in saying, don't we have an obligation to this generation? Isn't his future more important than who wins the next election? Don't we really have to keep our country together so that one day he'll be able to stand up and say that he was the connecting factor between our founding fathers and the greatness that this country will and can achieve? Thank you so much.
I'm Kristal Hart reporting from Hamilton Grange National Memorial here in Harlem, and thanks for watching.